Hey yogis, welcome to the YogaLocal podcast. My name is Josie. I'm one of the teachers here and the founder of this studio in Nencourt, Wellingborough. Thank you for listening and tuning in. I wanted to talk to you this week about where we're headed with our quest to explore the three aspects of Kriya Yoga. We've been working in week one. We worked with the teaching of tapas and creating that internal heat, that internal fire, which is the practice that brings in that quality of luminosity. It helps us to see the quality of Tejas. And then in week two, we looked at the practice of Svadhyaya, which is self-study, how we use practices to help us go inwards, to internalize, to see what needs to be done in order to move us forward and to take action from that information that we get back when we really truly go inside and start to explore what it is that's preventing us from experiencing health and wellness and experiencing that remembrance of who we really are when we're done with all the coatings, all the layerings of life. And then last week we were working with the concept of Ishvara Pranidhana, which is remembrance of the self. It's practices that help us really tune in and tap into that reason why we're practicing. At the end of the day, yoga is this practice of union, and we're merging our kind of like subtle sense of, our dense sense of self, this physical body that we know and love and we've grown to really kind of protect and try and preserve. But ultimately, yoga's teaching us to kind of let go a little bit of this kind of covering that we have created for ourselves and respect it, nurture it, nourish it, but also remember there's this other aspect of who we are, which is more subtle, which is more connected to the nature of all things, consciousness itself. And yeah, it's such a massive conversation and a lot for us to get our heads around. But the pathway is there to help us, like handhold us into that space where we do start to believe that life has a purpose, that we have a purpose, that our life has meaning, and we can start to uncover what that meaning is for us as individuals, and then start to go out and take action in the world that makes sense. You know, we've all got a part to play, and if we're going out and fulfilling other people's roles and not our own, then there's a disconnect, right? So we feel disconnected. So the pathway is here. The pathway is there for us to follow, but we kind of get sidetracked, right? We get pulled down dead ends and avenues that don't go anywhere. So what am I talking about? Why am I saying all this stuff? Well, because it's so easy to, when you go down one of those wrong paths, or you take a wrong turn, or you lose that sense of, oh, is there really purpose in my life? Is there really something that, you know, I can really feel and move into? We've got these beautiful practices to help us come back home, right? Come back home. So here at the studio here in Nencourt, we're faithful to the tradition. We're faithful to the pathway, and that pathway is not necessarily linear. We may kind of need to come back down a pathway and reconnect with previous practices, right? So we have stage one is our anchor practice. It's rooted in moon, it's rooted in the mind, right? Muna translates as mind, and anchor practice is all about working with the practices of the moon, the lunar forces, downward energy, grounding energy, to discipline the mind, right? To discipline the mind and build that mental strength. And that's what we kind of worked with specifically at the beginning of the month. We worked with creating the necessary tapas, right? Tapas is internal heat, that fuel, right? That fuel that's going to sustain us on that path. We need to build that. Stage one, anchor practice. In rise practice, which is a more solar practice, which means it's more energy based, we're looking to build with the benefit of our now disciplined and more steady mind, our capacity to light ourselves up, our luminosity, right? To start to grow into this idea that we are more than just this physical body, and that when we can start to be more connected to that, we'll feel more whole, we'll feel like our life has more purpose. So when we come into stage 2 practice, rise practice, we're kind of starting to cultivate that. But, you know, if like we can lose our way, we can become distracted. Life is complicated and complex, and we're not always building upwards. And so occasionally we might need to get regrounded, come back into our moon practice, come back into practices which help us to recenter, to come back to our roots, to find that stability that we need. And then we go back in, and we've got rise practice waiting for us to then, right, let's recharge again, let's build our battery power, and start to then move into something which is called Tejas. So Tejas is the result of doing the tapas, the disciplined work to find that inner heat. So Tejas is the luminosity that comes from the fire that we build, right? And gives us that opportunity to start to really see. Okay, see clearly. We have light, we have luminosity, and as we're practicing to become more internal, so less physical, practice takes us out of the physical into the internal. We start to see and witness all our tendencies, all our complaints, all our conditioned memory, and everything that gets in the way of us going towards that idea that we can believe that life has purpose. We can believe that our lives have purpose, and when we direct our life in a way that was meant for us, not meant for someone else, then it becomes life fulfilling. It makes sense. So we have the tapas that's created the internal heat, which creates the tejas, which creates the light for us to see, and then we can see, not externally, but see internally, what needs to be recognized, what needs to be shifted, what action do we need to be taking. And then we have stage 3 practice, which is fire practice. Now we're in the fire, and now we're directing our awareness, directing our energies very specifically towards this goal of higher remembrance, Ishvara Pranidhana, which is the concept that we've been working into our practice last week. Our desire to remember is the ultimate goal of yoga, our desire to remember, to reconnect to who we are. So there is a path, right? There is a path. Moon, sun, fire, or in our case, we have anchor, rise, energize. At certain points, we might need to step off the path, retake the path of the moon to get more stable, or retake the path of the sun to bring in more light. You know, things get confusing in life, right? And we lose that connection. We lose that resolve. We lose that sense of self. You know, things come and they take us down, and we start to question. So we go back to a previous practice to then reclaim the qualities that we're cultivating in order to get us into that place where we can remember, right? We can remember. So there is a path, but it takes discipline. Okay, it takes discipline. We need to repeat. We maybe need to keep coming back to previous practices. And we need that mindset to help us, because, you know, it's, if our mind isn't on that ultimate goal, then it's so easy to just go back, looping into comfort and just staying stuck in a place where there's no growth, there's no evolution. So I guess what I'm saying is that it's not a one and done. Yoga is not a one and done. You don't kind of come in, right, anchor, done, rise, done, energize, done. You know, life's more complex and complicated than that. we need to keep cultivating all of these qualities. We need to cultivate our mindset in moon. We need to cultivate our light in rise. And we need to kind of keep that fire going through our energized practice, through our fire practice. And then once we've maintained, when we can start to maintain these qualities over a period of time, then we get the mental firmness, we get the strength in body, the purification that we need to experience the tranquility of the mind that brings us into another yoga word, there's loads of them, which is Prajna, right? And Prajna is going to become your new best friend. Prajna is this experience that we have in meditation. Prajna is the capacity to be, or it's the space for that experience of revelations in meditation. So that when we sit down in meditation and we're invited to witness certain energies, shapes, colors, perform certain mental kriyas, certain actions, those things become more readily observable, right? We build the necessary qualities for prajna to become part of our everyday living experience, okay? So without that, we don't get that revelation in meditation. Without that, we don't get that experience. And without that, we don't get that belief that, right, this is what we're going for. We don't get that belief in our practice that it's actually taking us down a specific pathway and that life is actually unfolding absolutely as it should, perfectly organized, just like everything in nature. And we are part of that story, the story of nature unfolding. And the more that we can experience prajna, right? Experience these revelations, experience that aha, that feeling of being deeply connected to all things, then we're going to struggle. So let's not struggle. Let's keep going. Let's keep taking this pathway. Let's tap into our discipline. Repeat, take action. Okay, guys, bye for now.